AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host, Mark Kelly, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Today's guest on the show is Rahul Chipalkatty. Rahul is the CEO and founder of Southie Autonomy Works. For those that haven't heard of them, Southie Autonomy are revolutionising the way people interact with collaborative robots. Their aim is to help businesses recoup their return on investment faster by lowering time, skill, barriers and cost. In the interview, Rahul shares his inspiration for setting up the company, challenges they needed to overcome to create the software and tools, and some of the benefits of this approach. You're listening to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. My guest is Rahul Chipalkatty from Southie Autonomy Works. So without further ado, let's get straight on to the show. Rahul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Rahul, you've got a really interesting background. So before we go straight into what Southie Autonomy does, can you tell us a little bit about your background and some of the cool stuff that you've done in the past?
Sure. So my kind of robotics and AI life started when I was an undergrad at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And that's where I caught the robotics bug. I was working as an intern at the commercialization arm of the Robotics Institute there. And they were working on some really amazing robotics work. One of them was this kind of six-wheeled robot that could flip upside down and keep going. And it was basically the size of a truck. So it was a huge robot. And I got to run that around. And since then, I've just been hooked on robotics. So from there, I did a master's in Illinois, and I worked for GE Aviation a little bit doing control systems for engines. But I really missed robotics, so I went back to a PhD program at Georgia Tech. They had just started it. It was a concentration in robotics. And so there I studied control theory, and then I also paired that up with how people and robots can work together. Specifically, how can people control a large number of robots like swarms? And that's kind of what I focused in there. And I parlayed that into a job at Draper Lab in Cambridge, Mass, basically across the street from MIT. And for them, I was doing autonomous systems work for the U.S. Department of Defense. So there I got to work on robots that were underwater, on the ground, in the air. And then finally we had a project on autonomous mobile manipulation. So that's robots that can move around as well as pick things up and move them around. It's kind of combining that mobility with the manipulation of say, a robot arm. It's really fun.
Brilliant. So tell us a little bit about Southie Autonomy and how did it actually kind of come about and what problem were you looking to kind of solve?
Yeah, it kind of started off from our experience. My co-founder Jay and I, we were working in the DoD space in the U.S., working on those autonomous systems. And when we noticed that while we as experts knew how to deploy the system, how to use it, when we kind of did the handoff to folks that don't have that background, there was a little bit of an adoption gap there, right? They didn't quite understand, well, why is a robot doing this if we only give them a trace of the trajectory of an underwater robot, right, or an air robot? It doesn't expose the reasoning about why that robot is doing what it's doing. And so this is a big gap in terms of autonomous systems is how do you have people and robots speak the same language, right? How do they communicate about why they're doing things, what they're doing things, and what they're going to do next, right? And these are kind of hallmarks of how people work together. So we saw that gap there, and we've been working on tools to try to bridge that gap. And kind of what's really behind there is the ease of use. Can we make concepts that you can only currently program today, make them accessible in a non-programming environment? And we saw a very strong parallel to the industrial space, where you have robot arms that are being deployed every day, but only very, very skilled experts are deploying those things, and only very skilled programmers can deploy them. And there's an obvious need for that with growing kind of unemployment at historic lows in the U.S. at least, and you combine that with these repetitive, boring jobs that people don't necessarily want to do. It's not a career that they aspire to necessarily, and you combine that with repetitive stress injuries. There's a serious need to automate, but if you still have that really big barrier into getting to automation, there's kind of a gap here, and manufacturers are being squeezed where they need to get more out of their workers, but they also want to enable their workers to do more, right? They want them to aspire to be maybe, say, robot process engineers. And so that's the problem that we're trying to solve. I think we have some steps towards there.
Yeah, and so a lot of the kind of the media hype will be kind of focused around robots taking our jobs. And I'm definitely not a man for believing in that. Tell us a little bit about kind of cobots and kind of humans and kind of machines and augmentation and how you kind of view that playing out.
Yeah, so we've always thought about robots as an extension of people, right? They're always in the service of someone and what they're doing. And we can kind of take advantage of what the robots do best, which is this repetitive nature of it, the strength and the kind of versatility and the endurance of what a robot can do versus what we're good at as humans, where we can be very dexterous, we can be creative, we can think cognitively, and think about how to piece motions together. So we really want to combine the human and the robot so that we can take advantage of what they're both good at. And this is kind of where collaborative robots philosophically have been trying to fill that niche, and we've just been getting started, right? Collaborative robots have probably been on the market for about 3 years, and they've been growing 50% year over year. So that market's really booming because people see the benefit of that side-by-side work of a human and a robot working next to each other. The gap here, though, is that right now it's still a programming task in order to get the robot to work with the human, and we want to lower that barrier by having the person communicate to the robot in a much easier, more natural way, say using gestures and voice.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the cool robotic software you offer to businesses and share some of the examples of how this kind of benefits clients? Because ultimately, some people might necessarily understand some of the acronyms that are kind of used along the way, but if you could really explain this, it'd be fantastic.
So our software is an intelligent robot software platform. So the idea is that you can compare this with either a collaborative robot or a normal robot. And the idea is that our system makes a robot so easy to use and fast to deploy that you can now enable processes that are what we call high variability or batched processes, where traditionally you would need to have a volume of, say, 10,000 robots to justify the cost that it takes to set that one robot up. But since our software makes that robot really easy and simple and fast to set up, now we can enable cycles that may be, say, 100 times that you're doing, or 200 times, and you can quickly move that robot to a different task and have it do that one for, say, 300 times or 200 times. That type of ability to be flexible in terms of how you deploy the robot and what kinds of use cases you can use them with, that enables a whole broad new set of automatable tasks that we couldn't quite hit before.
That's incredible. Could you share some of the companies that are kind of we're working with, maybe the benefits that they've actually derived from that?
Yeah. So the reason our software makes it easy is that we now have converted the programming over to the person telling the robot what to do using gestures or voice commands. And then the robot can communicate back what it understands about the task using visual light, basically projected light like augmented reality, as well as voice commands. And so a good place to use these types of things are in material handling tasks, like, say, depalletization. So this means taking, say, metal parts that are stacked on a pallet and moving them into some intermediate, say, container or basket. And this might go on to some other process, say, like a heat treatment process or something like that. And so a person right now has to bring the pallet over to the robot and then spend an hour and a half of their time to just basically pick out parts from that pallet and place it into a basket, right? This isn't, it's not super hard. It's something a robot can do, but there's enough variability in their process that having a traditional robot be programmed, installed, have all the kind of work style design, all that stuff makes it cost prohibitive and space prohibitive. After you add in all the motion control and everything, you're looking at a 250 square foot machine for a very simple task where a person just walks up and does it. So we are enabling the person that actually does the work to be able to move the pallet over and then use these gestures and wands to tell the robot, hey, here's the pallet, here's the set of parts that are in that pallet, and then here's the basket, and here's where I want you to place these parts, and in this sort of fashion, say, stacked next to each other and standing up. Robot, you now take over the task, you figure out all the details, you program yourself on how to actually do it. And so this frees up that person to go do other things that are probably more meaningful in their job.
Yeah, which is fantastic because you're upskilling the employee to do better jobs, more interesting work. They're not doing repetitive work where jobs can just do better anyway. They've got more efficiency, more accuracy, they're more consistent. So everybody's kind of winning from that. And you mentioned a really good point. Previous to that is you have to program these things, and these skills are very, very challenging to program. They're very niche skills to do that. Somebody can use gestures. That's very, very straightforward.
That's exactly right.
Here at Alldus, we want to make the hiring process easier for all. Whether you're an employer or an aspiring employee, we have the service for you. For full-time work, Alldus will partner with you to find the best person for the position. Using both our network and our rigorous qualification process, we ensure that only the best talent is shortlisted. We will manage the process and work with you to select our most suitable candidate for your organisation. We also offer excellent temp hiring services. At Alldus, we provide a great opportunity to help you and our candidate make the right choice. The contract period is one long interview for your full-time opening, and the extended experience with our consultant helps you make the best decision. Alldus International is here to quickly help you find the best AI candidate. Our experts stay in close contact with our consultants throughout the duration of the contract, ensuring they have everything they need to get the job done.
Tell us a little bit about how the challenges you needed to kind of overcome along the way to do that. And you've kind of spoke about it there, and it kind of fell off your tongue, and it seemed pretty straightforward. But I'm guessing there were some challenges that along the way you might have been kind of thinking, "Oh God, how are we going to overcome these?"
Oh yeah, just like any startup trying to really do a paradigm shift in how folks think about how to use robots and automation. That's really been kind of the hardest thing, is getting those early adopters to think about, how do I use automation in a way that I've never really thought about it before. Everyone thinks about it as if it's got to be a highly repetitive, high volume process, but really we can do that same high volume, but have it be changing and variable. And these kinds of tools have not really been available for folks. So we need to get the word out on that. You really can automate something that you didn't maybe really think was possible. So a good way that we kind of think about it is we're using people that are doing these semi-repetitive tasks that could be automated. It's just the cost isn't there. The ROI for that type of task isn't there with current tools, but they certainly could be. So talk to us about what your problems are, and we could probably have a great solution for your material handling needs.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Where do you feel that robotics and AI is kind of ultimately going to affect our lives? And do you think that one way or another there's going to be a very big impact? And if I was to ask that another kind of way, what are the top industries that you feel will be most affected from artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we really see robotics and AI making a difference in filling the gaps in our workforce. As we were kind of mentioning before, there are some challenges around the labor force, and as you said, we want to upskill them. So there are going to be kind of more menial jobs that we think robots can really fill. In terms of applications, we think this can range from the factory to your office and ultimately the home. I think elder care is kind of a really big place for that. And kind of what enables this is what we've been talking about this whole time, is that we need robots and humans to work together and to be interactive, right? The interaction should be easy. You don't have to have special skills to deploy these robots. We want them to kind of be accessible to everyone, and kind of right now that's not quite the case. And when we kind of talk about industries, there's kind of three that we think are going to be kind of home runs in the real soon time frame. One is logistics, and by proxy, kind of logistics tasks within the manufacturing environment. So previously, it's been a little bit sleepy of an industry regarding tech, but with this growing need for e-commerce, the mass customization, kind of dwindling amount of available workers, and if you kind of pair that with the growing number of available solutions in autonomy and automation, it's making this automatability quotient quite high for this type of work. So I think we're going to see a lot there. We're already seeing a lot of companies, especially kind of mobile robots, and now I think we're going to ultimately see mobile robots with arms on top of them. I think that's just how the industry is going. Yeah. The second is kind of healthcare, pharma, and in-home is the third one that we think is really a big push.
Is there any exciting projects coming down the line that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I alluded to a little bit before, but we think, especially in the logistics space, that combining mobility with a robot arm is really something that can have a lot of value to customers. Right now, these are folks that are doing this manually, and anytime you have someone kind of walking, running, it's a place where we can improve efficiency. If you combine that with the kind of picking of simple things where you're just moving things around, which happens a lot in these factories, kitting's a great example of this, where you're kind of putting a bunch of SKUs or a bunch of parts into a tote that's going to go further down the line. This is a great place to automate. And so one of the things we're excited about is just partnering up with some folks to make the deployment of those types of robots really easy. Because if you can think about it, the way people do it now is they program the mobile robot separately than the arm. And those are just basically, you just more than double the amount of time it takes to deploy the robot. So by having a type of software like ours, where you can tell it kind of high-level information and have it think about how to program a really complicated task, which is moving your base and kind of using a robot arm, we think there's some great value there.
Fantastic. You're listening to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly, and we've been speaking with Rahul Chipalkatty. And Rahul is the founder of Southie Autonomy. Rahul, thank you very much for your time today. It was absolutely fascinating listening to you.
Thank you for the time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. For more information, contact mark@alldus.com. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.